What's up, everybody? How are you? Tina, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You're muted to me. Can people hear Tina? No sound. Okay. Can you guys Tina disappeared. Can you guys not hear me?
You're good.
Call
I'm gonna go sort with Tina real quick.
Oh, okay. Calling on the ones and twos, ladies and gentlemen. What did you guys think of the how did you guys like that sauna music? Did you dig it? It was pretty zen, wasn't it? It was like I was just like, man, I don't know if I'm preparing to do a show or if I'm about to, get a massage or if I'm supposed to be meditating. It was cool. I dug it. I dug it. I hope y'all dug it as well. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Status Coup. Sorry for the awkward intro there. We're having a little bit of a tech thing on Tina's end. But welcome to Status Coup. I am Ron Placone. Tina will be here shortly. And we got a lot to talk about today. So, different protests in different parts of the world. We're going to be talking about the France protest, which is continuing. Well, Macron is in China at the moment, and some reps in Tennessee are potentially going to be expelled over the gun protest. We got some live footage from all that. That's literally happening right now. Like that's breaking as we speak, and we got an update on the Restrict Act. You guys know we've been following the Restrict Act here since the beginning. Well, there's a few more updates. Unfortunately, it has grown in popularity. There are both Republicans and Democrats supporting it because if there's anything we can count on bipartisan support for, it's a bad idea. So we got an update there. Tina, are you back?
I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Welcome back. I can hear you loud
That
and
is so
clear.
weird. All we did was push the mute and unmute button twice, and then
I think it was the massage music from earlier put you in a trance.
Stormy Daniels music.
Was that what it
Don't
was?
you
It
wanna?
was very zen music at
I
the
don't know.
beginning there. I felt like
I don't know.
I was like, "Oh man, I should
It's
be
the exact
meditating."
opposite of what's happening in the world. We need a little zen to our chaos.
We should have death metal if we wanted to
I know.
mirror what was happening in the world. Just like death metal music before we go on. Like, "Welcome to Status Coup. Everything's horrible." Smash the like button though. We're going to get through this. Smash
We are
that
gonna get
like
through this
button.
together.
Let's go to France first.
Let's go to
I feel
France.
like
France.
man, they
France. This has
don't
been building for a
mess
while.
around.
It's been building for a while, you know. To me, this is a prime example of like a corporate Dem, right? This is a guy that's gonna stick to his
Macron, you
neoliberal
mean?
principle. Yeah,
Yeah, and he's not even in
privatization.
the country right now, by the
He's
way.
not in the country right now. He left the country while chaos is breaking out. But you know, privatization, you know, taking away workers' rights. You know, French people are not accustomed to having their rights taken away, and they like a good protest. So he knew that these protests were going to erupt. I think part of the
That's why he
conversation.
bailed.
That's why he bailed. I think part of the
He's like, I need a
conversation,
trip to China. Just a
yeah,
coincidence.
is because he, you know, didn't put it to a vote. He gave himself special constitutional powers to just make this happen. So, for folks that aren't aware of what's happening, they are going to up the retirement age by 2 years. So that will, the same arguments you hear about Social Security, right? Make the pension fund more solvent. We have too many workers, living longer lives. The money is not there. You know, the same arguments that you're hearing here in the United States. None
Yeah,
of it is
the difference
necessarily
is
true.
that their age is 62, going to
Right.
64. Our age is
Right.
already 67. They're trying to up it to 70,
Right.
and in the U.S. the life expectancy is lower. So, and you're seeing why they have it way better in France because
Yeah.
they don't tolerate this.
They don't. Yeah.
They
There's a
don't.
different cultural difference between the French and the American public. So.
Well, and I think it's by design. In France, you have a much better
Right.
social service net. It always has been that way. They have
Yeah.
some of the best maternity and paternity leave in the world. They have some of the best healthcare in the world. They have solid workers' rights and solid wages because when there's something they don't like, they don't tolerate it.
Right.
They shut it down.
It's
Oh, and
baked
by the
in.
way,
It's
healthcare is
baked
not
in.
tied to their job.
No,
So when
it's
healthcare is not
universal.
tied to your job, you can fricking go on strike. And when you have strong union support, you can fricking go on strike. And they do, and they don't tolerate it. And here's something. And by the way, they're protesting in all the right places too. Like they're showing up at BlackRock offices.
Right.
They're shutting down the ports. So there's also like a bit of like a call for true systemic change here. They realize, who these financial powerhouses are, and they're tired of the way they're trying to manipulate our society at the behest or, at the detriment to workers. And it's a worldwide infection. So
it is a worldwide infection. Also, I think what's interesting that's probably not getting a lot of discussion by the mainstream media. Well, actually, let's be honest. The entire French protest scene is not getting a lot of discussion.
Barely any.
It's barely any, and I think part of that is because that is very threatening to corporate power, right?
They don't want us to get any ideas.
Exactly. They don't want the American public to get any ideas, and not just America, Britain, other countries. They don't want it to spread. They want to contain it. But I think what's not getting a lot of discussion here is because it's a parliamentary system, we have some different players that are involved on different aspects of this that I think merits a discussion. So Marine Le Pen, who is the far-right leader at this point, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say she's a neo-fascist. Her father was a neo-Nazi. You can look into her history a little bit more if you're interested, but
which is really a shame on a number of levels. One of them being she has a cool sounding name. I mean, it's like with a name like that, you'd think like she would be a poet or a painter or something, and it's like nope, neo-fascist. Like that's really, even if you have a shitty sounding name, it's still not okay to be a neo-fascist. But it just makes it even more depressing. I feel like.
It absolutely does. But I think what's interesting about what's happening here is her supporters are out on the streets as well. So just don't think of these protesters as being union members and anti-fascists, right? There are also right-wing extremists out there having the same arguments, the same protests. And a lot of the, even here in the United States, a lot of the right-wing extremists now are becoming much more anti-capitalist because they see the problems, right? The income inequality. They can diagnose all of those things. Of course, their solutions are much worse than what we have now, but that's sort of tangential to discussion. The neoliberals, the conservative Democrats are opening a lane, as they always do, for these folks to come in, right? And take up that space. So what else is happening is the conservatives, like the traditional conservatives in France, are siding with Macron, obviously. Because they want, these are business leaders. These are folks that want to do something to scale back workers' rights. They want the pension age to be increased because that's in their benefit, right? So
it's necessary.
So now his alliance, even though he's quote unquote on the left, right, in France, I'd say he's a neoliberal.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? But he's now, so him and the conservatives are kind of occupying that space right now to get this done. They're in agreement with each other on this issue. And what you have is everybody else on the outside. Yeah. But there is a power vacuum that happens when we see this, these kind of alliances come together.
I think it's not necessarily like totally unique to this case, but I do think it's so interesting how in those parliamentary systems they form different alliances. Like how they'll like come together to form. I mean, it's not always a good one, obviously, but it's like they'll come together and they'll be like, okay,
it's more democratic in a way though, because it does.
It's way more democratic.
It does force the extremes to like curtail their extremist positions if they want to make an alliance, right? There's no universe in which the anti-fascists and the left union leaders are going to go like Marine Le Pen, you're our person now. That's not going to happen because obviously the differences here that are based in fascism and race and all these things they're insurmountable. There's no way there's going to be a unification there, but that doesn't mean in this time period that we're in that they're not both out there protesting what the government is trying to do right now. So it just ups the ante.
I just think it's cool because the way it works, in general, is that they need the socialists and the communists and just the left to really get anything done a lot of the time. So it's like you have to just give a little bit. That's why like their right is not as extreme and as far as people with power, and their left is actually a left. Right. So left, right? I mean, I think it's kind of cool. And it's just interesting to me because we don't have anything like it.
We don't have anything like it. That's right. I just want to read this little bit here so folks have an idea of what I'm talking about. So this is from an NPR article that I thought did a pretty good job of explaining all of these various groups. So opposition lawmakers demanded the government step down. One communist lawmaker called the presidential power a political guillotine. Others called it a denial of democracy. And I think this is true. It absolutely is a denial of democracy that signals Macron's lack of legitimacy. One union leader called it institutional violence and called for more strikes and protests. Marine Le Pen said her far-right National Rally Party would file a no-confidence motion, and communist leader Fabien Roussel said that such a motion is already on the left. So this is sort of what I'm getting at. So the mobilization will continue. So the folks that are saying they don't want a no-confidence vote are obviously the conservatives, the traditional conservatives, and the neoliberals.
Yeah. And that's who he decided to hang his hat on. And now the chickens come to roost. Is that the word for it? That's not the phrase. I messed up the phrase.
What's
Is
the
it
phrase?
the goose has come to roost? I don't know. Forget I said that. I don't remember. Now your chickens have come
to roost. No, the rooster has.
That's
the
not
roost
it. Is that
roosting.
it?
No, I think so.
Who roosts? Somebody,
Who-
man. All right. I think people know what I was trying to say. Can we go to the
Somebody's
BBC? Someone's roosting
Yeah.
somewhere. Let's go to the BBC piece because I thought this was like kind of interesting too. I mean, we mentioned how the ports are shutting down and they're protesting BlackRock. Another place that they decided
there's
to.
over 1 million protesters out there. I don't know if we have any video to play. It's hard to get right.
Well, another place they went to is a restaurant that Macron likes.
Yes, that's right. A very famous restaurant, by the way.
they
Not
went
just
to
a
a
restaurant he
bistro.
likes. This is a very nice restaurant.
Oh, I'm sure it's a great restaurant. I mean, he's a fancy pants Magoo, but they said, nope, you don't get to do that anymore. I bet when you come home, you're going to want to go to your favorite bistro. And sorry, guy, sorry. I mean, you can't help but admire the French when it comes to this stuff. They don't tolerate anything. They will pummel a politician's house with poop. They will, they just don't tolerate it.
One of my favorite videos was where the rat catchers in Paris started throwing dead rats in protest. Did you see this video?
No, but that's also, and by the way, and I'm not
it sort of sets
advocating.
the tone.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'm not advocating violence. I'm not advocating that at all. Their protests have largely been peaceful, but they're not getting their demands met. So they're increasing as far as what they're doing. And I would say that shutting stuff down is still peaceful. I would say, shutting down a restaurant is still peaceful. Property doesn't have feelings. So yeah, they've had enough. They've had enough. And it's, we could really take a few notes out of their playbooks.
This video we're looking at now is inside the BlackRock offices in Paris. So I do want to mention that BlackRock has absolutely no connection to the pension plans there in France, but they are a symbol of international economics. They're a symbol of Wall Street. They're a symbol of all of the rot inside, corrupt governments that people are angry about. So,
in other words, fuck them.
Another video I saw had firemen squaring off with the police. Generally firemen and police officers have similar, political leanings, tendencies. They tend to, travel obviously in the same circles, but they got into a big brawl. I don't know if anybody else saw that video, because obviously the firemen are on the side of the strikers. It's their pensions too.
Mm-hmm. Well, didn't some of the police kind of switch up, or was that just sort of?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Hearsay.
I didn't see anything like that, but
I didn't see it, but I heard it. I heard a couple of the. I mean, I don't know. I guess you'd like to think such a thing is true, but yeah. So we'll see what happens when Macron decides to come back. Gee. Wonder what he's gonna come home to.
King Charles, are we calling him king yet? Prince Charles, King Charles was scheduled to go to Bordeaux for a meeting. He canceled that. They were wilding in Bordeaux as well. So there's literally been crazy protests all up and down the country, smashing windows, Molotov cocktails, the whole 9 yards. My thing is this: to just kind of expand on what you were saying earlier, I do understand why when this rage builds up to a certain level, this is what's going to happen, right? So if you try the traditional routes of being heard in a democracy and you're not being heard, what ends up happening is this, right? So if you talk to your elected officials, you have phone calls, you show up to meetings, you send emails, you do petitions, you do all of the normal channels with which you're supposed to be heard in a democracy, and nothing gets heard. You end up with stuff like this. So it's completely predictable.
Well, and it's been more than a few steps even past that for them.
Oh yeah, I mean,
they just said we're going on strike. We're going on strike. And that could have been enough. He could have been like, okay, the ports are shut down. There's a national strike. There's okay. All right. He still didn't. So now they're like, okay.
No, I mean, the fact that he did what he did, I think part of it is that he did thwart the democratic process. Instead of this going through the legislative body for a vote, he's like, nah, we're just going to do this. That's it. So I think that's what's driving the anger. This is seen as an assault to the democracy itself in France. And in France, you don't assault democracy.
Yeah, they have one, at least compared to us, they do. And
anyway.
So yeah, there you go. All right. Well, let's go over to our shores, where there is, I would say, a much different picture right now as far as what goes on in the society, because over in Tennessee, they protested over guns, and even some elected officials participated in that protest about gun violence, as they should. And how's it going, Tina?
So this is a very upsetting story. So basically what we're looking at right now is 3 elected officials from Tennessee state representatives are being put up as we speak. This is happening right now. I've been watching it live this morning. I clipped some stuff out we're going to play, but they are being expulsion from the state representative body, even though they're elected officials, by the Republicans there. All 3 of them are Democrats. One's a woman, 2 black folks. But what happened was they took part inside the chambers a couple of days ago, and we talked about this, at least the events leading up to this. They had like a mini protest, sort of. People were in the chamber to watch the government do its thing. The Republicans were not interested in having any gun safety laws looked at, passed. Instead, they're like expanding what the NRA wants. So these 3 representatives took over the well. One of them had a bullhorn, made some speeches. This was, as far as I'm concerned, legitimate First Amendment protected free speech. There was nothing crazy that happened. There was no violence, no any physical fights.
Yeah, it really wasn't a big deal. And people were just like that lady was crying, like, I've never seen anything like this. Like, oh, come on. Give me a break. Someone give them an Academy Award. Cool story.
And because there is a super majority of the GOP in the Tennessee House, they can do what they want, more or less. So now they've decided they're going to, start expulsion proceedings. I do want to play.
Which, by the way, this has only been done a couple times in Tennessee history throughout the Civil War. So because these 3 representatives interrupted, a proceeding, which, that's not the most common thing in the world, but boy, is it justified in this case. I mean, kids are getting killed and nothing's being done about it. So they do this civil disobedient action, right. And they're facing expulsion. And again, this has been done, I think, like 2 or 3 times since literally the Civil War. I mean, this is
these are it
shouldn't be
officials.
done, but
they are basically giving the middle finger to everybody that voted for these folks, right? They're basically saying, we're going to vacate the seat.
Yeah.
The representative that you elected, we're going to kick him out, vacate the seat, and you have no representation right now because we're doing that. This is an extreme move. It's
very extreme.
It's fascist. I mean, are you kidding me with this? And this should anger everybody in the country that this could happen. I want to play, Colin, can you play the second clip? It's about 8 minutes long. One of Rep. Justin Jones is arguing with Kumar, who is one of the Republican reps. I think it sort of encapsulates the entire feeling of what's happening in that body today.
And I'll play it so you can, it's like you said, it's 9 minutes, so I can pause it anytime if you guys want to. And I do have, it's just under 8 minute montage of the original speech as well, which you can also just
I want to do the Kumar thing first because I think it really sets the tone for what's happening here.
excited since I got elected to this House, and this is terrible. And really, it's just disappointment is what comes to mind. Representative Jones, you had a difficult time. You look at everything through the lens of race. Those are your experiences, and that's perfectly understandable. But sincerely, after becoming elected, you should be celebrating. You really should be. You should join the House, become one of us, make the transformation from being a person who, yes, we've known you demonstrating a lot, mobilizing the community, but make the transformation to be a representative who represents. You claim that you have 78,000 people to represent. You claim that you have 78,000 people to represent. But, sir, you have not done that. You have mainly interrupted the proceedings. You have attacked fellow representatives. You have attacked the chairman almost in all committees. That is not representing your people. That is not going to bring credit to the people that you claim to represent.
Hang on, let's stop there for a second, Colin.
So
I think this is telling. He's basically saying that his actions aren't representing his district when the exact opposite is true.
Well, yeah, especially since he's saying join us. It's like this isn't about like, serving people.
Exactly.
Yeah, like this guy thinks they're a cult. He thinks they're like seriously, like he's like, you're supposed to join us and just do what we do, which is not actually represent people.
Which is not the people's business, right? So what he's saying here is completely just an affront to every person that voted for this guy because they do.
That's why he needs to look at his notes so much. He has no idea what he's saying, and he stands for nothing, and he probably doesn't mean a word of what he actually said. So I mean, like the way that guy was looking at his notes, he was just like, I am appalled by what you've been doing. Like, are you really? This is a great performance piece you're doing here.
Oh, wait, it gets better.
Are you in the same theater troupe as the lady who cried because she was so outraged that this was happening?
Keep playing, Colin.
I'm an immigrant, everybody knows. I have been in this country for 53 years. And when it was 50 years, you recognized me for that. It was a celebration in my mind and for my family. In those 53 years in America, I have never encountered a racial slur. I'm really not aware that any of that applies to me. I live a good life. Yet, you on tape call me a brown face. Yes, sir, it's on tape. It's on tape, okay? You can't deny that. Wow, I said it's on tape, okay? You called me that. After the committee meeting on that same day, you walked up to me. You had no business coming up to me. You were sitting a row or two ahead of me. You shoved your finger in my face and said, Kumar, they will never accept you. You said it twice, and you were so intimidating that the sergeant at arms, without my invitation, came and intervened between us. Sir, that is very disappointing. You did that. I was there.
Hang on, Chairman Clemens, you have a question?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much. He's talking about things that aren't the subject of the resolution.
Well,
I don't know that he's even telling the truth, but he's definitely not talking about anything that's subject of the resolution.
Well, the
events that took place on this floor.
Chairman Clemens, I'd be careful about the language that you use because that would impugn his reputation, which we had conversations about a few weeks ago. So I would be careful. You didn't go there, so I appreciate that. We have given latitude to the representative in the well who's made many accusations against me and other members of this House. I'll ask Chairman Kumar to stay on the topic of today, but I would advise you then that everybody in this chamber, including as the representative in the well, to stay on the topic and germane to the conversation. Representative Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll wrap it up by saying that it is disappointing that you have insulted this body. You have insulted your colleagues. You have insulted the House of Representatives in the state of Tennessee. You have insulted our speaker. You have personally insulted me. And part of that is on tape, sir. I implore you that let us take it from here, whether you are expelled or not, but please, come on, you are a talented young man. You have a lot to offer, but offer it in a way that people are accepting of your ideas. Join the society where you celebrate your achievements. I wish you all the best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay,
Thank you.
hang on. Before we hear from Rep. Jones, because what he says is really powerful, I want to talk about this for a second. This, to me, just feels very much like traditional Southern Jim Crow bullshit, right? So here we have a black guy has made them all feel very uncomfortable with his actions that were, in many ways, in almost every way, as far as I'm concerned, warranted. And their response is, you should join us and assimilate. You should stop being impolite. You're making me feel uncomfortable. Like, none of his points are being addressed whatsoever, right? None of the points that Justin Jones made about gun safety, about the children in his district that are harmed from gun violence, about the fact that the GOP in Tennessee wants to pass, what they call school safety laws, which are nothing close to being about school safety. They are, NRA wet dream laws, right? They don't address any of the actual problems are related to the shooting. And, their response to this is like, sir, you need to join us and stop making me feel uncomfortable. It feels very Jim Crow-y to me.
Cringy. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty cringy stuff. I mean, when he kept saying that, he's like, well, why don't you join us and celebrate your accomplishments? And look,
in a way that makes, in a way that makes me feel comfortable. Like, I think that's the underlying tone here, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And I don't think he just means him as an individual. I think he means his fellow Republican colleagues and, like the good old boy Tennessee GOP.
Yeah.
And look, I don't know this person.
And, real quick breaking news, they've the 3 and are now debating the 2nd.
Yeah. So Justin has been expelled. Justin Jones has been expelled.
So they did expel him.
They 100% did. They're gonna. Listen. This is gonna happen with all 3 of them. They have the votes there. This is a GOP supermajority. What they're doing right now is just going through the motions. This is a done deal. They've basically thwarted democracy in the state today. They decided it was perfectly acceptable for them to remove elected officials that were put there by the people from their districts.
That is nuts.
It is absolutely atrocious.
That is nuts. I mean, and honestly, as somebody who has lived in Tennessee, I am not surprised. I mean, I lived in Nashville. I am not surprised. That is the way Tennessee operates. And there is, it's not a reflection of a ton of the people who live there. Again, the people were on this guy's side.
No, they 100%
people were with this guy.
That's right.
But the way that state is run, I mean, every state is corrupt to the gill, but states like Tennessee, they're a few notches higher than some other places. I mean, that's just the truth. And yeah, like I am sadly not really surprised by this, but it is freaking gross to see. And yeah, this and I don't know much about this Omar person. I really don't, but Kumar, excuse me.
Doc
but
Kumar.
I mean, if he, I find it hard to believe he's never heard a racial slur in his life.
Yeah, no, it's nonsense.
In the not even just in Tennessee, in the United States. I don't.
I will let Rep. Jones address that because he does.
All right, I'll let him do it too. But I find that a little hard to believe. I have not lived in his shoes. I don't know, but I find that a little hard to believe.
Yeah. It's impossible. All right, let's go back to Justin.
So much, Mr. Speaker, and there's a lot to unpack there, Representative Kumar. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. I mean, it's sad what you just stated to me, and that's what this is really about. He said, you see everything under the lens of race. When you join this body, you should just become one of us. Just assimilate. That's very disappointing to hear, my friend. And what I told you was what you just exhibited. As the only member of their caucus who is not of the Caucasian persuasion, I said that you put a brown face on white supremacy. That's what I stated.
All right, Representative Jones, Chairman Clemens, you know that that's out of line if you're moving down Chairman Kumar. We've asked people to stay on Jermaine. I asked to stay on Jermaine. He made his He made a statement
Hang on.
there.
So
He was clarifying. He was clarifying what that guy
there.
accused him of.
Well, he's allowing Kumar to run his mouth off in ungermane ways to do what he does and
Right.
accuse him of them. But now he's not going to let Jones defend himself.
Yeah, he's not going to let Jones explain
Sexton
it.
is, by the way, he's the ringleader of this expulsion effort. So just to clarify who all these players
That's
are.
ridiculous though. Like he said the words that Kumar said was, "You called me brown face," and then so he's clarifying. This is
he's
what
like, no,
I said.
I said put brown face to white supremacy.
Right.
And that's
He's
is a
explaining
very different
what he
thing.
said.
That's
It's
right.
very different. So he's explaining it, and they cut him off for explaining it. That is
course.
a gross double standard.
I agree. It gets worse. Let's carry on.
Down Chairman Kumar, we've asked people to stay on Jermaine. I asked to stay on Jermaine. He made his He made a statement right there. I got it. We're not going down there. You got your response. You have it, Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think he has an opportunity and the right to defend himself from allegations that were asserted on the floor. I think if the record needs to be corrected, he has every right in this hearing to correct the record and state the facts.
So I just want, for the record, you're okay with going off of the resolution and not saying Jermaine? Because I ruled him out of order and made him go to a different direction based on your point of order.
After how long?
Yeah.
Chairman Clemens?
What?
I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker. Of course, he continued to speak. And once the toothpaste comes out of the tube on an allegation like that, I think it's right to correct the record, if only briefly. And I know my colleague will stay on the resolution from here on. But I think those types of allegations deserve a response. Thank you.
The guy, he's on his phone.
Representative Jones?
Thank you,
Kumar's
Mr. Speaker.
playing on his phone.
Yeah, he is. He's
Continuing
on the background on
in
his
response
phone.
to Representative Kumar's egregious statements, he stated that he has never heard a racial slur. I heard one in this body not too long ago when Representative Sherrill recommended that we should bring back lynching
This happened.
in this body. And so I'll move on. The statement and recommendation of Representative Kumar was that I would not be up for expulsion if I just assimilated, if I just conformed, if I just confined myself, as he has done, to be accepted by this body. He said that you attacked chairman. Let's unpack that. Me asserting the voice of my district is what he is referring to. Me ensuring that the rules are followed in committee and raising points of order and points of parliamentary inquiry when the chairman acts against the rules is what he is talking about. Me asserting the voice of the 78,000 people of District 52 to him is an attack. To me is upholding my responsibility as a legislator. And so no, I did not come in this body expecting to be accepted by this side of the aisle. I came here to serve the people of District 52 and to do good work in the forced conversations that we have to have in this body. Because so many times I sit in these committees and the bill he's talking about, we try to censor conversations. He was talking about a bill where we were censoring conversations on race. Censoring what kids can learn in school because it makes people uncomfortable to talk about Black history. And he expected me to be censored as a equally elected representative to not talk about the history of racism in America when he made those egregious statements in Government Operations Committee. He expected me to sit there and conform and accept things because that is the only reason that he's been accepted by these members here. But I don't want acceptance from you. I want acceptance from the people of my district.
Amen.
I don't want approval from you. I want approval from the people of my district because I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make a change for my community.
Representative Powell.
I mean, he's right. So he was elected by the people from his district. He is doing their work, not the, white nationalists and the GOP's work. And obviously those two things are at loggerheads. But What I'm mostly bothered by is, I mean, we expect a certain level of racism from these guys because that's just who they are. They tell us that's who they are in the daily. I'm pretty disgusted by the fact that in this country, they can just expel a sitting member of the state representative who is there as an elected official who deserves to be there. They have no right to do that. None.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless...
But they're doing it. Nobody's stopping them. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, unless if somebody like murders somebody or something, like that's a different.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Some of these sitting GOP members that are involved in this
have done
been
horrible
accused,
things.
have
Yeah.
done horrible things. One of them is
And
accused of assaulting a teenage girl.
Yeah, no expulsion.
And no expulsion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing. I mean, it's like, yeah, like there's certain extreme situations where such an expulsion is necessary. This is nowhere in the realm.
Yeah,
this isn't even
exactly.
in the same ballpark.
No.
And lo and behold, there's people that have done horrible things, and Justin Jones brings that up, and none of those people, and most of them were in the room. Like there was someone that was accused of assaulting a teenage girl, no expulsion.
Right.
There was someone that was accused
And
of
in fact,
some other
the
horrible thing.
same GOP guy protected that guy from expulsion. He made sure it didn't happen. So he actively worked to make sure that there was no expulsion.
It's really, I mean, it's a big club everywhere. It's a big, like, it really is.
This
But
is particularly egregious, though. This is Jim
like
Crow level, like, shocking. I mean, it's maybe I shouldn't be shocked, but I keep thinking, my God, really 2023 and we still can't address this bullshit?
No, I mean, look, there's people, you know, I've spent a good amount of time in the South because I lived in Nashville for a few years, and I have some family who lives in the South, and yeah, I mean, there is a lot of that kind of stuff that still goes on. I mean, there are people that are descendants of slave owners that still to this day have never had to work a day in their freaking lives because they inherited everything.
Yeah.
And they're still, you know, of that mindset. And that's why I don't understand why people aren't in favor of reparations, because it's just like, well, wait a second. Why are you, you know, everyone's, oh, well, someone shouldn't be held responsible for stuff that their ancestors did. Okay, that's fine, but they're entitled to.
That's not what reparations are, though, right? Who we are holding responsible is the government. The government failed to provide adequately, as they promised, for the freed people. It has nothing to do with the fact that your grandfather did or didn't do something at all. I know that like a lot of people try to. No, I know a lot of people. I just want to clarify that because a lot of people do think that's what's going on.
Okay, but my point is yeah, what you said is absolutely correct. But my point is the hypocrisy is interesting to me, that they use that as an excuse. Yet, well, that doesn't add up, because you're saying that someone shouldn't be held responsible for something their ancestor did. Okay, fair enough. But they're entitled to all of the bounty from it. It's okay that, hey, your ancestor, you know, owned slaves. We know the horrible way they accumulated this wealth. You shouldn't be held responsible for that. That was done years before you were born. You shouldn't be held responsible for it. Okay, but you're entitled to all of the wealth from that. You're entitled to everything, and nobody should ask questions. Nobody should say, maybe that's not okay. You're entitled to not have to work a day in your life.
Right.
When we know how your ancestors accumulated this wealth that you have being handed to you just for being born. Right. That's hypocrisy at an extreme
100%.
level.
I agree.
I know that's not what reparations would be, but that's still hypocrisy at an obscene level.
Oh, I agree. Both of these things are true. All right, so let's play the accumulated clip of the hearing earlier in the day, some of the high points of things else that happened.
What's happening here today is a farce of democracy. What is happening here today is a situation in which the jury has already publicly announced the verdict. Just yesterday, the House Speaker took to national news to condemn us and call for expulsion before any evidence was presented, before any trial happened. And so what we see today is just a spectacle. Article 2, Section 27 says that any member of the House, any member of the Senate has a right to dissent from and protests against legislation that they know to be injurious to the people. The inaction of this body when it comes to the crisis of mass shootings is injurious to the people. The obedience of this body to special interest groups like the NRA is injurious to the people. The proliferation of guns that you promote in this state is injurious to the people. And so we had no other choice but to get our dissent marked for the journals. The next day, I was shocked to get messages, shocked to get copies of articles that House Speaker Cameron Sexton went on national television to lie to the world and say that what happened in this well was an insurrection. What happened out in those halls was an insurrection. I was shocked to have the Speaker of the House condemn mothers and children and grandmothers and parents and concerned citizens, clergy, lie on them and say that they were violent insurrectionists. And I think that he owes the people of Tennessee an apology. One of the members on the other side of the aisle was in tears and said, "I've never seen such a breach of this sacred chamber." And I thought to myself, that representative has obviously never read history. Because is it in this chamber, if you walk around this Capitol, you'll see bullet holes when representatives got into conflict. You'll see duels take place on this House floor, debating whether people like me should be treated like equal citizens under law. This is not a temple. This is a place where we're supposed to wrestle for our democracy and wrestle ideas and give voice to 78,000 constituents each of us represents. But for so long, this body, drunk with power, has modeled for the world what we know as nothing less than authoritarianism. We called for you all to ban assault weapons, and you respond with an assault on democracy. Last Thursday, when thousands gathered here, tried to silence members from talking about the issue of gun violence because they were afraid that a conversation would remind people that there is complicity of this body in what happened at Covenant Elementary School. The truth be told, colleagues, Covenant Elementary School was not the first mass shooting in Nashville. I represent a part of Nashville. And one of my constituents, who I don't know is in this chamber, Ms. Brooks, lost her son, Akila, in that mass shooting that occurred at the Waffle House in Antioch. And after that massacre, we demanded that this body act, but once again, you turned a blind eye and closed your ears and put your head in the sand and refused to listen to the voice of the people. And how do my colleagues respond? They respond with the most extreme measure of expulsion, which has only taken place 3 times in this House. Only 3 times in over 200 years have there been members of the House of Representatives expelled. The first case was in 1866. 6 members were expelled for refusing to confer citizenship on formerly enslaved persons. Then in 1980, 1 member was expelled for taking a $1,000 bribe to kill a bill on committee. In 2016, 1 member who many of you served with was expelled for 22 counts of sexual harassment. And now what you're doing with this prejudged expulsion resolution is saying that our actions were on par and equivalent with those egregious, some would say criminal activities that occurred. Let's talk about expulsion. For years, one of your colleagues who was an admitted child molester sat in this chamber. No expulsion. 1 member sits in this chamber who was found guilty of domestic violence. No expulsion. We had a former speaker sit in this chamber who is now under federal investigation. No expulsion. We have a member still under federal investigation. No expulsion. We had a member pee in another member's chair in this chamber. No expulsion. In fact, they're in leadership. In the governor's administration. What you're really showing for the world is holding up a mirror to a state that is going back to some dark, dark roots, a state in which the Ku Klux Klan was founded, is now attempting another power grab by silencing the two youngest black representatives and one of the only women, Democratic women in this body. Many members counseled and said, perhaps you should come here and plead mercy. Perhaps you should come here and say, we throw ourselves at your mercy. That we should be ashamed of what we did and hold our heads down low. But what we did was the only logical thing to do after a session defined by extreme silencing of representatives of this body, a session defined by multiple moments in which the attempt to even bring up gun violence was immediately out of order.
You approached the well, began to shout in the well, and the speaker gavelled you out of order. Do you deny that the speaker gavelled you out of order?
Representative Jones.
Thank you, Representative Garrett. I can't recall the number of times the speaker has gavelled me out of order for simply doing my job as a representative, but on that day, the speaker, in his normal fashion, chose to silence members as he had done throughout that day.
Representative Garrett.
And do you understand to speak from the well as you are speaking today, you were able to speak because Speaker Sexton recognized you in the well to be able to speak?
Representative Jones.
Thank you. I'm able to speak because the people of District 52 sent me here to speak. Speaker Sexton is not my constituent. Speaker Sexton is not a king. Speaker Sexton is not God, though he may want to be. He is my colleague. And so the people of District 52 sent me here to speak. And it's them who I ask for permission if I can speak and represent them.
I am so here for that last part.
Yeah,
He's
I mean,
right.
I don't know much about this guy, but I
Sexton
do
is
think
atrocious.
No,
He's
no,
a
I'm
Christian
talking about
nationalist.
Okay, I'm talking about Justin Jones though,
Ah,
but
okay.
I don't know much about him, but what I've heard so far today, if there's one, positive spin on this, he's too good to be a politician.
He's
He's just way too good. Politicians are usually at best mediocre people 99.9% of the time, and even the ones that are somewhat useful, i.e. they vote the right way, they are still at best one of the tools for change that hopefully just votes the right way. So I mean, listening to
By
this
votes
guy,
the right
he
way,
seems,
you mean votes the way his constituents want.
yeah,
Okay.
his or her constituents want, yeah. And so, I mean, listening to this guy today, he's too good to be a politician.
Yeah, no, but they need him. They voted for him.
No, they need him. They need him. Hopefully they get somebody who will, at least vote the way he did.
So I think also the other highlight was that he's mentioning all of these other things that have happened that are actually illegal law-breaking things, and nobody was expelled for them. So basically, he's being expelled because protesters came into the chamber, started a protest because the GOP is refusing to pass gun safety laws, and he came down to the floor and joined the protesters along with Gloria Johnson and Rep. Pearson, who are also being expelled. And this is where we're at. So basically, they engaged in First Amendment protected protests. They joined their constituents on the floor because they want change. And now the GOP, that is a supermajority in the Tennessee state legislative body, is going to expel them. So now I want to play a video first of Justin coming out from this and being greeted by a whole group of people out there that are in support of what he's saying and doing. Let's play that.
We stand with Justin. 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 We stand with Justin.
So obviously a lot of support there. So now they've moved on, and this is ongoing as we're doing this live stream now. There's still this session's still running. So Gloria Johnson is now having her chance at being expelled. I'm sure they're going to expel her as well. And then we will have Rep. Pearson, who is also.
I'd imagine if they expelled one, they'll likely expel all.
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
they
maybe,
have the votes.
Yeah, I mean, he was the most. I mean, it seems like he was the most outspoken person in so maybe it'll just. But I have a feeling it'll just be all of them.
It'll be all of them. That's a given.
That's...
This is where we're at. And I don't know. So what do they do next? They have vacated seats. They call a new election. My question I'm curious about is, can these individuals run for office again and win their elections again? Which is absolutely outrageous that the state would spend money doing that, because all of this costs money on top of everything else. For what? Just to slap them on the hand because they did something, they made you feel uncomfortable in your own chamber because he spoke truth to power. I mean, this is just absolutely frightful. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is, so Sexton and the rest of several of these other GOP Tennessee guys were basically saying that what they did, like engaging in this protest with their constituents on the floor, they were saying that was a violent insurrection. Now, mind you, many of these same individuals were perfectly fine with what happened at our Capitol on January 6th.
If you're going to call it a violent insurrection, bring your receipts. Bring your receipts. You're going to call it a violent insurrection. Yeah. Where's your receipt? Who died?
No one. Nobody was even hurt.
Did anyone die there?
There was
no one got hurt? No one died?
No physical altercations. I mean, there was some yelling in a bullhorn.
That's
some
not
chanting.
Violence.
No, nothing. There was nothing violent. There was nothing violent about it, and it certainly
were the yells
not an
in the bullhorn calling for violence?
No.
No. Okay. Well, then, if anyone wants to call it an insurrection, give some receipts.
Yeah. No.
Who
it's
got
just
killed?
It's just stupid.
Who died?
It's not an insurrection.
Who got hurt? No, I know. But yeah, it's like, okay, if you're gonna call it that.
So wildly, Ron, they did think they brought receipts. So early on in the proceedings, there was an argument about playing a video that had been taken on the floor that day. We're not clear on who took it. I think it must have been one of the GOP state representatives. There was arguments about that because apparently that's against chamber rules to record if you're on the floor, and they did that anyway. So the Democrats were obviously saying, hey, whoever recorded this video also broke the rules. So who is that? We need to know who that is. But that we never found out who it was. But anyway, they played this 7-minute video, and it was like, I watched this video and was like, yeah, right on, good for these guys. And I'm like, oh wait, that's the video that's supposed to qualify them for expulsion? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, this whole thing's ridiculous. And you know what? It just goes to show you the big lesson here is that the United States of America they will just let this place become a total mask-off fascist regime before they do anything about guns, before they do anything about it. And it reminds me of the lovely poem, the brutal but lovely poem by Brian Bilston, America is a Gun. England's a cup of tea, France a will of ripened brie, America is a gun. Japan is a thermal spring, Scotland is a Highland fling. Oh, better to be anything than America as a gun. And the U.S. is a gun. That's all it is.
Poem?
Always has been. Yeah, you never heard that poem before? Yeah, no, it's a legendary poem. It's a beautiful, beautiful poem. And that's what comes to mind right now. They will just like, you know, there's I mean, look at this. Like, they're literally just completely thumbing their nose at even the facade of a democratic process.
Yeah, they absolutely
because they said
in both of these examples,
guns.
right? In Tennessee, they're doing that, and also what Macron did in France, same sort of thing, right? So, to me, what we're seeing
I'm sorry, Tina. Something like this would not happen in France. I'm sorry. Like
but it
like
did. Macron basically thwarted the legislator to pass what that's why they're having protests right now. I think
something like what happened to those officials in Tennessee would not happen in France. I'm sorry. France is not perfect. France has their problems, but France is a better country than the United States. And something like that would not happen in France. I'm sorry. Just one.
Macron literally just thwarted the legislation to up the pension age. Like, he did that by taking
That's not what
power.
happened in Tennessee, though. We're talking about people in Tennessee who participated in a protest and got expelled from their jobs. That would not happen
I'm not
in France.
saying it's exactly the same. What I'm saying is both of these are examples of democracy being thwarted. You don't think they're both examples of democracy being thwarted?
One is in a much more different league than the other, but okay. I mean, yeah, they're both examples of democracy being thwarted. A paper cut and a broken arm are both injuries. But I get your point.
I'd say they're both broken arms, but okay. Colin, I have one more video I want to play. So this video is of Rep. Pearson. He will be the third one to, I want to say, is it wrong that I want to say go on trial? Because I feel like these are sort of like trial proceedings that they're doing here. But he went out and spoke with some of his constituents out in the Rotunda as well.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, for supporting us, for staying with us, and for fighting on. We're not going to quit. We're not going to stop. There's more to do. Thank you so much. Love y'all.
So, I mean, I think it's interesting because generally when you go to sort of state chambers, city council meetings, whatever, there's generally not a big group of general public there watching these things. You can watch them, on your internet at home. So to see this so filled out with supporters is really saying something. Obviously, what they're doing is against the will of the people.
Big time. Yeah, big time. And yeah, it is encouraging to see people show up for this.
Yeah.
But it's chilling that
it's
it can
not going to
happen.
stop them. Yeah, it's not going to stop them. That's the scary thing. And there doesn't
They
seem
don't
to
care.
be. No, they don't care. But it's wild that there's no sort of check or balance mechanisms to stop this sort of thing from happening. Like it's like the wheels are off the train here. Like how is this even a thing?
It's almost like the game is tilted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and again, and this is, I mean, last week on the show when we were talking about, we were showing the stuff the Tennessee Holler did.
Right.
I mean, yeah, like I lived there, and it's like it was par for the course that you would have these things that they would try to push through, and especially in Nashville. 80% of the people were against it. It didn't reflect at all the will of the people who live there. And yet, by this slim majority and these tilted rules and the way the game works in politics, the state would get away with, the state's GOP agenda. That's just how it's always been there. And it's, it's really sad to see.
It is sad to see. And I also want to mention, so Justin, who is the editor-in-chief at the Tennessee Holler, I actually had him on Right Wing Insanity a few weeks back to talk about the creeping theocracy in the state of Tennessee. If anybody wants to hear more from him, he's a fantastic journalist. And he's doing a great job covering what's happening there now. But I wanted to mention that a few days ago, somebody fired bullets into his house. And he has a family, kids. So very dangerous. Yeah. Dangerous times. And who knows where they were coming from, right? It could be any number of places, but he's going to keep on keeping on. So I recommend following the Tennessee Holler on Twitter if you want to keep tabs on what's happening there.
That's nuts. Yeah, and in Florida, they're like what? They're making like open carry even easier right now. They're trying to do that in Florida. It's like,
not just
nuts.
Florida. I mean, it seems like every time we have some horrific mass shooting, which is on the daily at this point, it just incentivizes them to have fewer gun laws. I just don't understand it.
I mean, it's always been that way. I don't. It's a rough topic because if I'm being honest, and I've said this before, and not a day goes by where I don't hope I'm wrong, I have no confidence, none whatsoever, that we will ever see any type of gun policy in this country, ever.
Yeah.
I have no confidence. The fact that it didn't happen.
I think that's a fair assessment.
After Sandy Hook.
Yeah, I agree. Sandy Hook was a turning point for a lot of people.
Columbine should have been the wake-up call.
I agree, should have been. But I think Sandy Hook was like, now we're talking about, babies here practically.
And it's amazing because the United States and I know like all countries kind of have these similar problems, but I feel like the United States really turns it up to 11. We live in a society of just such absolutes and such extremes where it's like, well, we can't even have It's the most ridiculous conversation because people make it out like there's only two options. Option one, we just continue to do absolutely freaking nothing. Or option two, Barack Obama drives around in a school bus and takes everybody's firearm. And it's just so absurd. Like, it's so painfully absurd that it's
No,
like,
you're right. It's like
people
there's
entertain.
nothing in between, folks. Really?
There's nothing in between. Other countries have guns. This idea
Exactly.
that the United States is the only place where people have guns, it's wrong. It's just
is wrong.
false.
It is
Other
false.
countries have guns. They
And they
just
also have gun
better
safety laws and
They have
a whole
better
host of
laws
things.
around
That's
them.
right.
They have ammunition restrictions and protections. Certain, you have to go to certain
Liability.
places to use the gun. There's classes. There's so
Yeah.
many things we
I mean,
could
the
do.
fact that people can just get a gun from somebody and go commit a crime, and the person that owns the gun isn't even remotely liable for that is crazy to me.
It's
That's just
nuts.
crazy. It's
And just
nuts.
all the things, like all the things we could do. We could have voluntary buybacks. We could have
Right.
registration like a car. We could have required classes. We
like
could
a
have
car.
better background checks. We could have references. We could have protections
Think about
on
that for a second.
ammunition.
There's more laws required to drive a car than there is to own a gun.
Way more.
How does that make sense?
It's absolutely absurd. And when
It
you
really
bring
is. It
up
really
it-
is.
oh well the laws would be that they wouldn't work because of blah blah blah. It's just like, okay, you could make that argument about any
About
law.
anything,
Make
exactly.
that argument about any law. So what are we supposed to do? Just no freaking
Yeah,
laws?
it's just nonsense. It's nonsense.
I wish
I
we could
mean-
live in that world, but guess what? That's not reality.
Right.
It's so infuriating. It is
Yeah.
just so
It
infuriating.
is. It's infuriating because innocent people keep getting killed.
Yeah, and
in
there are
meaningless
children.
ways. And
There are
children.
there are children most of the time. I mean, they're not always, obviously,
this
but
point,
I mean,
yeah.
these school
No.
shootings. It's just
And also the toxic environment we've created for our children, where they have these shooter drills now. I don't know if anybody
nuts.
has. Okay, if you've seen one of these shooter drills, you would be horrified. Like, there's no way a child goes through that. How many times a year do they do these things, and it doesn't affect their mentality? I mean, it's scary.
Yeah, I mean it definitely does. It is just so. I mean, even like I get so annoyed. I mean, I saw on Twitter, you know how like Gavin Newsom will occasionally like kind of troll other states a little bit, or like make a kind of virtue signaling thing about other states. I find it so freaking annoying because
I
it's
do
like,
too.
look, Gavin, we know that other states are doing some crazy things. That's one of the
Right.
reasons we live in California and we
Right.
pay out the wazoo to freaking live in California. We don't need you. Instead, how about we fix some of the stuff in California? We're the fourth largest GDP in the freaking world, and
we
we don't
fourth
have an
now? Wow.
efficient rail system. We might still
Yeah.
be fifth. I'm not sure. I think we were up to fourth, but fourth or fifth, and we still don't have an efficient freaking rail system, dude. So it's like when he does shit like that, it'd be like you go to a fancy restaurant and you're like, I know I'm going to a fancy restaurant. You pay for your meal ahead of time. It's expensive as hell. Your food
Yeah.
never comes out, but the waiter tells you how shitty McDonald's is for an hour and a half. And it's like, well, I came here. I came here, dude. I know. Like, that's why I'm here. It's just so infuriating. But he made this tweet about the thing in Nashville. And I'm like, hey, man, that's great. I agree with you. It's great they're protesting. That's fantastic. What can we do in California to lead the way and do even better? And then people were just, well, California is actually one of the best for gun laws in the United States. That's like saying, oh, okay, cool. We're on top of the shit pile. Way to go. Way to go. We're the least crusty turd. I mean, it's like there's still mass shootings here. So how about, somebody leads the way? And maybe it would be at a state level. Maybe it's going to take some state to say, okay, this is what we're going to do to really change gun culture in our state. And maybe that's going to be the blueprint that the rest of the country looks at. Then it actually leads to something federal. But no one's going to do that. No one's going to frickin' do that because A, it would take a hell of a lot of political courage, more than any governor I can think of has. And B, you'd have to thumb your nose at the NRA and the stronghold they have. You'd have to thumb your nose at basically all the other states. And you wouldn't be able to just rest on your laurels and be like, well, we're not as bad as some states, so burp to burp. It's pathetic.
It is pathetic, but I think also to speak on the bigger picture, without a federal law, there's just too many other options for someone to drive to, Phoenix and get a gun.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
so I feel like unless we move towards some sort of federal common sense. I hate to use the term common sense. I do, because I feel like that's kind of has a weird co-opting going on, but but that is what it is, right? Something that just makes sense. Like, why can't we have background checks? Why can't we have liability attached to owning a firearm? Why can't we have safety locks required on guns? There's a host of things that can be done that do not thwart gun ownership if you're a legal abiding citizen whatsoever, but will make the country a safer place. And this just, to me, seems like so obvious, yet.
No, it's got to be federal in the long run. You're absolutely right. It's just like, hey, we're getting desperate here. So maybe maybe if one state, be it California or somewhere else, does something like a registration, background checks, classes, stuff like that.
Well, we do here how California have some stuff like that.
We have some stuff, but it could go way freaking further. Again, it's like, it's harder to maintain a car.
We have a law now. So Biden actually just added some laws to ghost gun stuff, which I think needed to happen. I'm not sure how effective they're going to be. This just recently happened when I was researching the article I was doing on some Proud Boys that were selling ghost guns. But I learned a lot about these things because there was stuff I didn't know. But, if you buy gun parts online and you assemble them into a firearm, you're supposed to, by law, register that firearm and get a serial number and have it engraved on the weapon. How often do you think that actually happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I'm going with never. I'm going with
like
never.
The loopholes.
There's a reason. Yeah, but there's a reason people are doing this, right? They want an unserialized weapon. That's the entire point. And there's absolutely no way to trace those things. How you trace them, right, is by putting serial numbers on the gun parts themselves.
Mm-hmm.
On the anyway.
Well, here's hoping we actually see something. There's tons of other countries in the world that have set examples. Tons of other countries, when they have something like a mass shooting, they do something about it, and they see results from doing something about it. But, again, America's the gun. All right, let's do a Restrict Act update, and then we'll go to the chat and see what y'all are saying. So this goes into the Restrict Act. So we've been covering the Restrict Act a lot on this show. A short video will be dropping shortly that I did for Status Coup. This is the bill that goes far beyond TikTok. It's commonly referred to as the Ban TikTok bill, but it goes way freaking beyond that. And what it would do is it could potentially criminalize VPNs. It could potentially criminalize. Well, here's some of the language. So here's why this bill is so concerning. This is how vague it is. Ready? I'll just read it to y'all. It gives the U.S. Secretary of Commerce the broad power to, quote, here it is. This is the actual language. Identify, deter, disrupt, prevent, prohibit, investigate, or otherwise mitigate, which basically means whatever they want to do. Any risk arising from any covered transaction by any person or with respect to any property that, quote, that the Secretary determines to pose, quote, an undue or unacceptable risk in several different areas. These include federal elections, information and communications technology products and services, and critical infrastructure or digital economy. That could be pretty much anything, as well as coercive or criminal activities by a foreign adversary that are designed to undermine democratic processes and institution. Okay, that's a little specific, but wait, we're not done yet. Or steer policy or regulatory decisions in favor of the strategic objectives of a foreign adversary to the detriment of the national security of the United States. That could be anything. That could be anything. Really, if you wanted to sum this up, they could literally just say, if you do anything on a device that you plug into somewhere and we don't like it, we could make you go to jail. Like, it's nuts. This is the Patriot Act Part 2.
On speed. I agree. It's terrifying.
It is ridiculous. Let's go to the Vice piece real quick, Colin, because there's a little more. There's a little more of so the insanely broad Restrict Act could ban much more than just TikTok. This is from Vice.
But they shouldn't be trying to ban TikTok if they're worried about.
No, it's ridiculous.
They're obviously politicizing something here.
Scroll down a little bit, Colin.
When they could just deal head on with private security issues in a different manner. Yeah, this is just nonsense.
So the Restrict Act is a concerning distraction with. The Restrict Act is a concerning distraction with insanely broad language that raises serious human and civil rights concerns. This is from Will Mary Escato, U.S. policy analyst for digital rights organization Access Now. Scroll down a little more. There was another broad piece that I don't think we got to. Let's see. Scroll down a little more. Oh, here we go. This is the paragraph I wanted. Under the Restrict Act, blah, 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 the bill only applies to technology linked to a foreign adversary. Those countries include China, Cuba, Hong Kong, North Korea, Russia, Venezuela. But the bill's language includes vague terms such as desktop applications, mobile applications, gaming applications. This is where the VPN concerns comes in. Right. Payment applications, web-based applications. It also targets applicable software that has more than 1 million users in the U.S. The Restrict Act could lead to apps and other ICT services with connection to certain foreign countries being banned in the United States. Here, scroll back up again. I want to go through that list just one more time, just to really hammer it home. Look at all the stuff this includes. Desktop applications, mobile applications, gaming applications, payment applications. That's anything. Yeah, web-based app. That's pretty much anything. Basically, unless one thing that you're allowed to do that the Restrict Act will not touch, if you have a pen and paper that happens to be from Canada, you should be okay there. That should be fine. Anything else could be a problem. This is nuts. This is nuts. Please, nuts. Folks, there's a new call to action. Go to stoptherestrictact.org. That's stoptherestrictact.org. Please sign to stop this ridiculous act. Even if you don't like TikTok, if you don't follow TikTok, this goes light years beyond. Yeah,
I don't think it's about just TikTok, right?
It's no, it's not. It's a ridiculous idea. It's to the point where even people who were originally attached to this thing are starting to go, oh, even Lindsey Graham is starting to distance himself from this. He was one of the co-signers.
Wow, really?
Even he, in an interview recently, even he was like, "Oh God, this is So, please go to stoptherestrictact.org. Stoptherestrictact.org. And before we go to the chat, folks, I'll let you know where you can find me on the road. April 14th, I will be in Los Angeles, California. And April 22nd, by the way, you don't have to leave your couch for this one. Graham Elwood and I are premiering the live version of our game show, Anything Can Happen, and you can buy tickets online and watch the live stream. I'll be tweeting out that ticket link pretty much right after this. I'll drop the ticket link in the chat as well, so you can attend that show right from your living room. It's on April 22nd at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. May 12th, I'll be back in Los Angeles, California. June 16th, Madison, Wisconsin. June 17th, Minneapolis. June 23rd, Detroit. June 28th, Bloomington, Indiana. June 29th, Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, Minneapolis, and Madison. Use the promo code Lucy at checkout for the early bird special on discounted tickets. Edinburgh, Scotland. I'll be at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival August 16th through 27th at the venue 32 Below in the Little Cellar. All information is available on my website, ronplacone.com. And October 21st, in San Pedro, California, I'm going to be having a comedy series right in my own neighborhood. So ronplacone.com for all those tickets and information.
Okay.
Let's get to the chat, shall we?
Let's get to the chat, yes.
All
chat
right.
time.
This is from, who is this? Jordan Cheratone? I hope I'm saying the name right there. Am I messing it up? Jordan. I think it's Jordan Cheratone. I'm not sure. I'm not.
Wait, Jordan, is that really
Jordan Sheraton? I've never heard of him, but I'll look him up. Yeah. I'm guessing it's actually him. I don't know. I mean, it's either him or someone.
Yes.
Yeah. Drinking French Bordeaux. If so, will there be sipping cups available for all? If I had a lovely French Bordeaux, I would want to share with as many people as possible. So absolutely. Yes. I would not want to keep such a thing to myself. That's something to be shared. So absolutely. So yes. When does Status Coup? Tony, what's up, buddy? Hope to see you in Chicago, my friend. When does Status Coup get a Ron theme song? Whenever they ask.
As soon as Ron composes it.
Yeah. Well, all right. So hopefully soon. Robin Bennett, what's up? Thank you, Robin. You're so kind. Thank you very, very much for your generosity.
Thank you, Robin.
Venetia David, you got a deal here. Ron, when you visit Edinburgh this summer, I must insist on a Highland Fling in order to honor the wonderful Brian Bilston. Yeah, everybody check out that poem. It's a fun one. And yes, Venetia, that's a deal. I will take you up on that. I'm not quite sure I know what a Highland Fling is, but it sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know if it's a place. I don't know. It sounds great.
A drink, a cocktail.
So you don't know what it is either?
No.
Oh,
but it sounds fun.
I don't know. All right. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Can I invite
It sounds
myself?
cool. Yeah, sure. I mean, hey, if you want to check out the Fringe Festival, I'll be there. But yeah. All right, Highland Fling. I'm going to find out what that is, and I'm looking forward to it. Despos Fleisch. Hope all is well in Germany. I better send a super chat now before my super chats will be deemed an unacceptable risk. Love it. Love it. Dave L., what's up, my friend? The Second Amendment is only 28 words long, and the words well-regulated occur before the word arms. No kidding, right?
No kidding.
No kidding. Not only that, but you know what? I'm freaking sorry, all right? This country, the quote-unquote founding fathers, the founding fathers, who, by the way, didn't actually find anything. They just killed the people who were here first. They owned slaves. They shot guns at each other to solve their problems, and they were in their freaking early 20s. Maybe, just maybe, we should entertain the idea that the shit they wrote isn't necessarily gospel. And by the way, one of the things they also did actually do right, they made these documents for the intention of amending them. They made these documents to be a revolving, evolving document. They at least had the humility to admit, hey, we're a bunch of dudes in our freaking 20s who are trying to do this goofy experiment. Sometimes we take 15 paces and shoot guns at each other to solve problems. Maybe we're not infallible. They were right about that one. So you should evolve these freaking documents. So maybe, just maybe, a document that was written about guns back when guns were much different than they are now. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to revisit that one, or at the very freaking least, take that well-regulated part seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, my God. Like, it's nuts. But, of course, only options are nobody has a gun or everybody has a gun. Those are the only options. There's only two choices. I mean, it's amazing. And we're like this on every freaking issue.
I know.
Like,
it's so stupid.
So
I can't even have
absurd.
conversations with people that say stuff like that. I'm like, really, there's nothing
And they
in between
think
those.
They think they're geniuses every single time.
I know.
Like every single time. They think like they're just like, well, actually, would you want to live in a world where the only people who have guns in the United States are cops? Like, no. But again, those aren't our only two choices,
exactly.
Dude. And
nobody is saying that. Exactly.
Even a lot of that logic, I don't freaking buy, because it's like these. Like I heard another guy, big gun guy. He's just like, well, the reason we have our guns, and that's what keeps them at bay. That's what keeps keeps people
who at bay.
The government or whoever else.
That is not
think,
keeping the government at bay. Clearly, it's not working.
Well, yeah, no kidding. But you know what my response is to those people?
What are they talking about?
Here's my honest response to people who say stuff like that, though. And you know, I know how absurd it is, so do I. But for anyone who entertains that logic, my honest question was like, okay, if what you're saying is true, if the powers that be, if the United States government, which by the way has the most militarized police force in the world and the biggest military in the world, who would gladly turn on its own people at the snap of a finger and has, if you truly think they're scared of your gun, that's what they're afraid of. Riddle me this. Why don't we have a better quality of life in the United States? Why doesn't our laws actually reflect public opinion a little bit? If they're so scared of your gun, honestly,
can I just point out, Ron, wildly, the other part of that conversation is that most police departments actually support gun laws because...
Do they?
They do, actually. A lot of them do.
Really?
Because it's dangerous for their officers to have a lot of these guys with massive arsenals out there. Like, you'd be surprised. I was always surprised.
I might be.
When I started researching this ghost gun thing, I was like, wow, a lot of these agencies actually support gun laws.
Now, was it the cop that broke your window who told you that?
No, I'm saying these are
Because maybe he was just trying to make you feel good. Like, what if it was the cop that shoved you and you were like, you jerk, you shoved me. And he's like, well, we support gun laws, I swear. And he might have been fucking with you.
No, hang on. Let me clarify. These are positions that institutions are taking, not individuals that are members of the institution. So I'm sure there are plenty of individuals inside these institutions that do not agree with that.
No, I got you, but no,
or they're going to cherry pick who they think should have guns. I mean, I'm really fascinated right now by the reaction that all of these like kind of right wing gun nuts are having towards leftists with guns, right? So we've seen in Texas,
right? Yeah, that's
now we have these John Brown gun clubs coming. Like all of a sudden, they're like, "Oh wait, shit! The left is now arming themselves. Maybe we should rethink this." So it's kind of fascinating to me.
They're socialist gun clubs.
They're 100% is, yeah. So, but the right has never like considered the fact they've always believed, right, that everybody on the left wants to ban guns and grab your guns. That's just that is just a truth that they believe is just reality, even though it's not. It's not even remotely. Most people I know that want gun safety laws aren't interested in banning guns, and many of them own guns. It's not. These are just extreme positions. They're not grounded in reality or logic, for that matter. But it's really fascinating to see that playing out right now, I think, because now all of a sudden they're really like, oh my God, look at those armed Antifa, and it's like.
Yeah. Or, well, where was it that they got all up in arms about trans people?
That was in Texas. That's what I'm talking about.
That was, man, Texas.
I mean, it might
Texas
have been
is on a roll.
But I'm just saying this, of course, this was bound to happen, right? I mean, it's not, and I've known plenty of leftists through the years that have owned guns. I think the idea that people on the left don't own guns is just a false belief. It's always been a false belief.
Well, I think it goes back to that absolute thing that we brought up, where it's like people make it out like it's like, well, either you're this NRA, supporting like, oh, well, we can't do anything about it person, or you're like, let's ban all the guns. And there's no, there's no like, well, we have to do something. What can we do? How do we go about this? Let's look at what other countries have done that has helped them. I mean, it's like both absolutes are freaking terrible, but for some reason, like the one absolute that we don't have is so objectionable, but the other one is kind of okay to have. And what I say when someone says when a gun nut says something like, oh, so you just want like nobody has a gun and the only people who have guns are cops and everyone's just gonna go and steal your gun, it's like, no, I'm not advocating for that. But to be honest, to me, your idea of doing fuck all is just as extreme as that. That caricature that you painted me as, which is inaccurate.
It is extreme.
You're as extreme as that. You're just the other side of it.
I'd say it's even more extreme in some respects.
Well, I agree, but I would just leave it as just as if I'm talking to those types of people. You know what I mean?
If you ask these same individuals, okay, would you want to do away with all of the legislation surrounding driving a car, like liability? Somebody harms you with their car and they shouldn't be held liable for it.
Right.
Like, would you want to go back to a time where that was the case? I don't think any of them would say yes to it.
Right.
Because it makes sense, right? People should be accountable and responsible for their weapons. Why is that a crazy thought?
I'm with you.
Why is that sacrilegious? I don't understand why that's a big deal. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
or
because
if you
of
have
that...
children, why do you not have safety?
Yeah, no shit, right? I mean, well, it's because of that 28-word thing that they wrote a long time ago. It's that.
That's just stupid.
It's that 28-word Second Amendment that they wrote years ago. Now we're not going to do
anything that makes sense because of it just doesn't make sense.
They wrote this amendment that certainly. I mean, it's literally called a frickin' amendment.
Right, but
that means
they also attach things to this amendment that aren't even there. Yeah, I mean, they like. There's so much that they've like sort of implied and suppressed into this 28-word thing that's not even there really. Where you're just like, Jesus, seriously? Like, it's wild to me. It's wild.
I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
I mean, it is definitely something about American culture that is attached to this. I mean, these guys that own like 50 guns and they're taking photos of their 50 guns and putting it on Facebook and like, it makes them all excited. Like, it's just like, really?
I mean, I think there's also sort of like an almost biblical element to it too. Like people interpret the Constitution or like, the First Amendment, Second Amendment, whatever. They interpret those documents the same way you see people selectively interpret a text like the Bible. where it's like, oh yeah, well the Bible says that you can't be gay. Like, okay, well the Bible also says you can't blend fabrics. The Bible also says you can't eat shrimp. The Bible also says it's okay to bone your cousins. The Bible also said, like, there's a lot of weird
murder
stuff.
your daughter. Like, I mean, come on, man, really?
And it's interesting. It's like people pick and choose what they take literally and what they take metaphorically. And it's like, okay, well, maybe, just maybe, so I don't know. It's the same way here, where it's just like, well, we're really gonna, that well-regulated part is kind of open for interpretation. But what we know for sure is that I'm entitled to any type of gun at any point. It's like, well, I don't think so.
I don't think so. That should not be the case, in my opinion. I don't think you need weapons of war in the middle of the street. Like, nobody's hunting. Do you know why people don't hunt deer with these weapons? Because it would totally destroy the deer and you wouldn't have any meat.
Right. No kidding.
Like, come on, man. You do not need these kinds of weapons for any reason. It's ridiculous.
I think if you're going to hunt, and full disclaimer, I've never hunted before in my life. I wouldn't have a clue what to do. But I think it should be bow and arrow.
All right.
Level the playing field.
Level the playing field.
Yeah, like bow and arrow. I mean, you want to hunt for food, that's fine. I mean, like I'm not gonna, no judgment here, but it's like bow and arrow. Why not? Man and nature.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it's like, I mean, like that's how animals do it. It's like, I mean, like they, when animals are hunting their prey, they don't have guns. They got, they use their teeth or whatever. They use their tracking methods. Like, so, bow and arrow. I mean, it's a tool made by
Travers
humans.
thinks we should use water guns.
They should use water guns. You should just water guns to hunt a deer. You hunt like a couple spiders or something. Fly Chomper Fly, what's up? Finally got here. Busy day. Gotta say thanks. Thank you.
Hey, Fly Chomper Fly.
Thank you very much, Fly Chomper Fly. Which, did we determine, is that a Cramp song? Did we figure that out? Sounds like it should be. I think it is. I think it's a Cramp song.
We did,
I'm pretty
didn't
sure.
we?
I think we did.
I think we did.
Anyway. What's up, Fly Chomper Fly? Thank you, Fly Chomper Fly. Thank you, Jordan Cheriton. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Hope to meet you sometime. Tony D, Robin Bennett.
Who is this Jordan Sheridan?
Venetia David, Desbush Fleisch, and Dave L. And of course, Fly Chomper Fly. All right, time for right-wing insanity.
No, that's right. In fact, we have an announcement. We are moving right-wing insanity report to Fridays at 5 p.m. So starting tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow we're talking about, I don't know if anybody saw this today, but ProPublica came out with a big piece on Clarence Thomas and some really nefarious money transactions. Let's leave it at that. We're gonna get into that tomorrow, and then some other right-wing dark money influence with Walker Bragman will be my guest. So that'll be tomorrow night at 5:00, and going forward every Friday at 5:00.
Oh, you're switching it up. So now we just kind of end here.
I know, it's kind of sad.
It's a little weird.
It is.
I mean, usually it's like all right. Well. The times they are changing. We got another Foggy Ozark. What's up? Let's see the super sticker. Yeah. It says super sticker.
I'll be back.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh,
if you look on the YouTube screen, you can see it. It doesn't show up on StreamYard.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
I don't know why it won't show up.
All right. Well, yeah. Fair enough. Well, thank you, Foggy Ozark, for I'll be back. Thank you, Dave L. Thank you, Desbush Fleisch. Thank you, Venetia David. Thank you, Fly Chomper Fly. Thank you, Robin Bennett. Thank you, Tony D. And thank you, Jordan Sheridan. And tomorrow is going to be Right Wing Insanity Report.
Yep. So I will see everybody tomorrow, 5:00 Pacific.
Status Coup signing out.